Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Lunchtime with Anna. Man, it is crazy. We are almost at like the year is gone. It has gone by so fast. I do want you guys to know that Divine Radio will be officially launching on 1/1/2022 on the third year anniversary of Lunchtime with Anna. Um, it has been such an honor um, to have you guys follow me, listen to me. I mean, everybody thinks their fans are the best, but man, my fans are loyal. I love you guys to the earth and to the end of the earth. Um, so I do want you guys to know I want to wish my Nathaniel a very happy birthday. He will be 17 years old tomorrow on the 16th. Please make sure I'm going to have him get live. Make sure you guys send him a happy birthday. With him being autistic, that means the world to him. Talking about autism, today's story touched me when I was reached out to. As you guys know, I'm a human justice organization CEO and founder, as well as a radio personality, as well as an actress, and um, the so many different hats that I wear, besides being called a mother, right? Um, so I was reached out to, and I'll let them introduce themselves, um, to tell me the story. And of course, first thing I ask for with anything you send me for the Human Justice Organization is please, don't withhold anything. Let me see everything. So as I'm looking at everything, I'm like, that doesn't even make sense. So I'm going to let Mrs. Coleman come along, and she can tell you guys, and then we'll take it from there. And what I'm going to do. Hello, Mrs. Coleman. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for the opportunity and the platform.
Thank you so much for taking the time to come here after this whole us messaging back and forth, right? And us getting to know each other. I will say, Mrs. Coleman and I went to dinner. I think that was a week or two ago. I don't know. I've been slammed, so I confuse my days.
I think it was like a week. Yeah.
I had the best time. I just didn't realize that the traffic was as bad as it was, but I know now next time. Um, so um, I also wanted to mention to you guys before she goes on and she tells the story that I know of. Fair with Demita Bishop has teamed up with We See You, and we are both working together to help Mr. and Mrs. Coleman. I think I've had more interaction. I may be wrong, but I want to say I've had more interaction with the both of them. Um, Not that trust me, Demita and I talk all the time. So, but I just wanted you to introduce yourself first of all and tell us about this. I don't have a word for this story because it's just like a roller coaster ride. It really is.
So, well, to give an introduction to myself, I have been married to Leonard since January. We're coming up on our 1 year wedding anniversary in a month here. And we've been together since September of 2020. And we actually met on a Christian dating app and became friends, which is how I learned about his story. And so I got a chance, and to this day, we still speak like 4 to 6 hours a day to really understand how his mind works and what type of a human being he is. And so once I was able to connect with his private investigator, who was taking statements from other gentlemen of his innocence and really see there's something here. It's not just my gut telling me that he couldn't have done this. Like there's actual evidence that he didn't do this. And that evidence got filed through the Mobile County Circuit Court in April, I really felt like I wanted to jump on board with all of my professional and communication skills and just really do whatever I could to help him and shine a light on everything so that he didn't just become lost in the system and this evidence didn't get ignored. And then as time has gone on, I just realized what an epidemic this is in our society in general. So I've kind of become like an overall advocate as well.
And so, and you guys, I want to add, I told Mrs. Coleman during dinner, I said, normally we're pushing families to do what you've done. You know, I'm like, I'm at a loss for words. Probably the most I can do for you is an interview and get you some media attention. And she's like, this is exactly what we need, you know? And I'm like, okay, because she has done such an excellent job at the change.org signature page, as well as the change.org, as well as different articles and stuff that she has sent. I do share, especially on my Facebook, that is the platform I use the most. I'm starting to use TikTok now more, but I hear they're blocking a lot of stuff. So
I heard
don't
that
know.
too. I'm not on there, but yeah, I've heard that.
So, but either way, right? What we're going to do is I want to go ahead and I guess start from the beginning. When you tell the story, I always tell people when I interview them, because I like, you know, it seems like my audience kind of likes to be involved, if that makes sense. So kind of put yourself in a corner as if you're watching every event. Because guys, I want you guys to understand, she read the entire disposition. I've read a part of it. She's spoken with the attorney. There's been investigators, there's been a speech pathologist, but we'll go all into that. But I want you to let's start with, who was Mr. Leonard Coleman before his whole life got flipped upside down?
So I would say he was just a regular person. He was a homeowner, owned his own home. He was a single father to two of his children, his son and one of his daughters, and just a hardworking person, a family oriented person that liked to do get togethers and play board games. He's a big board game person. And the child that was involved in all of this as the out of court statements witness, he was co-parenting with the victim, and they had a relationship to make sure they were spending time together with the child. So I would say he was just your all around like average person. He was TSA background approved, like hadn't had any prior convictions. So yeah.
So just average guy living the American dream. Loved his children
a lot. It still does. He's a great father, even from behind those walls. But yeah.
Never had any problems with the law.
So I will speak to that because, like, if anyone is inquisitive and investigative like I am, I like to just put the facts and the truth out there. And so people know we're being very transparent and not trying to hide anything. The media did come out in Alabama and say that he had been involved in a domestic violence call, but kind of failed to mention that he has a bit of a feminine voice sometimes. And he was the one who placed that call for help. That call was not placed on him. And so when the law authorities arrived, he was actually locked in a bathroom with his baby for protection. So he was not the one who the call was placed for. And on top of that, the district attorney's office in Mobile County tried to spin it that he had been involved in a shooting. He actually was involved in someone trying to rob him and used a BB gun and went to court and paid restitution as he was asked to. And then the media also tried to spin that he was involved in a stabbing, but he was actually stabbed. And so when he tried to take the knife away from this person, like they got, in a, as he would say in his Alabama slang, wrestling, unfortunately, this person got nicked in the process, but he was actually the victim of these events. But so I would like to caution people, just be really careful with what you read and hear in the media, because it can be spun in a way and twisted in a way that's very like untrue. So
Absolutely, that makes sense. Leonard had some bad luck.
yeah, I think
I
Mobile is a
have to
pretty
say
rough
that.
place. Yeah, like Mobile is just not a place to be. From what I read in news articles, there's a lot of gun violence and just I wouldn't raise children there, and I think he was trying to get out of the state when all of this happened as well. So yeah, he just was a victim of just kind of not being surrounded by very good people for sure, but he had no actual prior convictions at all, which is why he was able to pass that national background check.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's very important to say because um anything that you do, any type of jobs like that, they do a very, very intense full background and need verification on anything and everything
Yeah.
that comes up. So I do know this for a fact. Um, so okay, regular guy living the American dream. What happens next?
So the day, I guess I can take everyone back to the day that everything occurred.
Hmm.
Leonard and the victim had a conversation about their son, because the victim was getting ready to take him to a doctor's appointment. I don't think he was feeling very well, maybe like cold, flu type of symptoms. And they had a discussion early in the morning. Well, Leonard said, "Do you want me to go with you?" And she said, "Well, I understand you're trying to get your house together, you're landscaping, you're trying to sell it. It's okay. You take care of that. I'll take care of this. You can come back in the afternoon and pick up the doctor's note for the school, and I can update you." So basically, they went their separate ways, and Leonard went home to start cutting his grass, his bushes, things like that. And his neighbor, next door neighbor, had conversations with him throughout that time. It was like maybe a 3 hour window. Leonard was home. And then he went inside to just, shower up, get ready to pick up his kids in the afternoon from school. But when he got ready to go to the school, he noticed a bunch of police cars heading in the direction of the victim's house, and of course became concerned because they had just talked about the son earlier that morning, and he was scared like something might be wrong with one of them. So he, instead of going to the school, went to the victim's house. And so that's kind of how everything evolved from there. He was immediately taken into custody, and he said, I believe he was interrogated for 14 hours, even though no evidence had been collected or evaluated.
So when the police is going towards the victim's house, what why were they heading that way? We'll start there.
So it seems like she never made it to the doctor's appointment that they had set for the child at 9:30 in the morning. And someone had taken her life by shooting her in the eye.
And my deepest condolences to the victim's family, as
Yes,
well as Mrs. Coleman. I think we can all agree that that's tough for any parent, any family member to go through. So my
absolutely.
heart goes out to the Colemans. I wanted to say that first. Second thing is, okay, so the victim was already deceased or still had not deceased when the police came
Was
around.
deceased. So it seems like the timing of what happened, and we know now because there was a lot of confusion surrounding details when it actually happened. In October of 2020, which is like maybe a month after I met my husband, two gentlemen stepped forward who were best friends of the perpetrator, saying that the perpetrator gave them a full confession of exactly how he executed all of these steps. But number one, we know the victim never made it to the 9:30 a.m. doctor's appointment. And then around 1 o'clock in the afternoon, according to the trial transcripts, the little one, the 4-year-old with echolalia, who didn't know how to dial phone numbers by himself, somehow found himself on the phone saying to his sister and to the victim's mother that something happened to mommy, mommy's dead. So then that alerted police to go to the house. So it seems like this poor woman was there for perhaps like maybe 4 or 5 hours before authorities were alerted.
Wow. Um, and might I add, so in all this, Leonard was at his home, working on his yard. There is at least one witness, and that is a next door neighbor.
Yeah, and this person was kind enough to testify at trial, so there's transcripts of that.
Okay. What takes place then? He's interrogated for 14 hours. There's a autistic disabled child living in the home. The autistic disabled child who is just learning. Okay, so that I can explain what echolalia is, I'm very familiar. Again, because as you guys know, my Nathaniel is autistic. My Nathaniel started talking at 12 years old. So what occurs with echolalia is that these children or adults, but mainly children, it's almost like they just repeat the last fragment of what you're saying. So in other words, Nathaniel's watching TV. Nathaniel hears, we're going to San Diego at 9 o'clock. He'll repeat, San Diego, 9 o'clock. That's it. Now, echolalia can come in many different ways. It could have been something on TV. It could be a conversation he's heard. It can be a million different things that comes with it. I will also add, and this is what intrigued me with this case. My Nathaniel, right? And again, I am very familiar because my son is, and I deal with many other parents who also have disabled children because we're a very tight-knit community, which makes this even more difficult. And it seems like it's even more personal for me, right? The next thing is normally these children, okay, so they'll get their nouns, their pronouns, their verbs, all confused. And my son still does it. So, in other words, I'll ask him, Nathaniel, did you do your homework? No, I did my homework. So I have to ask a different way. Nathaniel, is the assignment that they gave you in this class, is it finished? Yes or no? Yes, more than likely is what he's going to say. Another good example of it, and I'm just saying because I know this, he'll say, you, when he points to himself, you go take a shower. He's trying to say, can Nathaniel go take a shower? So a lot of times when they're learning the speech and stuff, and they still do it as adults, especially, my son, in his case, he started talking at 12 years old. He's going to be 17. What takes place with the child? Wait, I want to rewind before we go on to what the police allege, right, took place. The child, or not the child, when the law enforcement goes to the house, is anybody connected to either of the two parties?
So the lead detective, Charles Bagsby, who is currently on the first 48, if anybody wants to reference who he is, actually used to date the victim and felt that it was Leonard's fault for the breakup of their relationship, according to what my husband has told me.
Um, do you believe that to be true?
I really don't have any reason not to believe my husband. And the only reason I say this is because I fact checked him from the time that we started dating. Anything he's told me, because I've run a credit check on him, I've run a criminal background check on him, I've spoken to family members, I've spoken to his private investigator. And then just details that he tells me, like everything has checked out with things that he's told me. So I haven't yet caught Leonard in a lie, which is why I have a level of trust with him that I would say I believe him.
That makes sense. That makes perfect sense. And I have to ask these questions. They're going to be tough. But again, picture the audience sitting right there. The audience is going to want
100%.
if there's any missing things.
That's
so I'm
right.
going to go back and I'll ask certain things. Were there any, and this is my first time asking this, and I probably should have asked before the show.
Okay.
But was there anybody to testify on his character as a child growing up?
I know that his ex, with whom he shares 2 daughters, God rest her soul, because she passed a couple years ago, but she did testify. I haven't been through her trial testimony. His transcripts are 1,100 pages. I've gotten through the large majority of those pages. But as to his character as a child, no.
Okay. And I have to ask that because a lot of times they will go back on how you were altogether. And, you know, because I like to build that character on that person. Now, okay. So allegedly, the detective had romantic encounters with the victim, correct?
That's my understanding of why he didn't testify at trial, because I believe a different detective was technically put onto the case and a different detective testified at trial. So perhaps it was identified as a conflict of interest.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. Why would he even be involved? I would think that that's a conflict of interest. That's like if I turn around and I'm supporting somebody, and yet I turn around and I support the families, the victims as well. It's a conflict of interest. I got to step down from one or both and make the decision of who I'm going to choose, right? So, okay. Family turns around. Well, not family. So we're still in 14-hour interrogation. Do they release him?
He was released for 2 months. He did identify a possible suspect when he was questioned. That suspect was never pursued. Actually, no suspects were ever pursued other than Leonard. And this is actually the same person who has now come forward as far as being included in our new discovery evidence. So, in the beginning of the show, I said 2 gentlemen stepped forward in October of 2020 to say their best friend confessed to them. This is the same person that Leonard tried to identify during his interrogation, but this person was never pursued. And so he was released, though, for 2 months, and then he was arrested in February. So the event took place December of 2010, and he was arrested officially February of 2011.
Okay. For 2 months, I guess they were building a case, right, before an indictment. He gets indicted. What is Leonard's family's reaction? Is his parents here? Are his parents deceased?
How is the victim's family that, from what either you've read on the transcript or has allegedly been said to?
So I can only go by like things that my husband has relayed to me. And so according to Leonard, the victim's aunt called his house so much that he had to file a restraining order because she just kept calling, like saying, why did you murder, my loved one, and just accusing him of being a murderer. So to this day, the family believes that he did it. And even though I did reach out to them and offer the new evidence if they would like to have it. And then Leonard's family, according to my husband, I don't even think they anticipated this. I think they knew beyond the shadow of a doubt, like there's no way, there's no evidence, nothing supporting that he could have done this. They didn't really believe that he was going to get convicted. So when it happened, they were all just shocked and devastated.
Okay. Wow. This, and guys, I want you guys to know, this is the unfortunate thing when these situations happen, because there are no winners. There's the victim's family. There's the alleged murderer's family. And I'm going to say alleged because, well, she'll continue saying, and as you guys know, anytime I have a case, I am very cautious to say things are alleged because I don't need a lawsuit.
Absolutely. That's the right way to do it.
Yes. So, okay. He gets indicted. Does the family find an attorney? Is he now with a private attorney? Was he dating anybody? Was he single? Was there support? Because many times with the family, there's just not knowledge. And I think I've spoken to you about this in private. And it's why I fight so much and read so much to help so many families.
Leonard at that time was financially well off enough to hire a private attorney. The thing is that he didn't really know that Jeff Dean didn't specialize in criminal cases. He was more of connected with drug offenses. And so perhaps he just wasn't really well versed enough in criminal defense to provide a solid defense. And then Leonard to this day still has very, very strong family support. And so they've always been behind him. To my knowledge, according to what my husband has told me, he was single during that year before trial, focusing on just his children and the upcoming trial.
Okay. So then he hires, I'm sure, someone by hearsay. This is an excellent attorney. And I'm sure he has been, with many cases, but of course, if that's not your specialty, you're never going to be able to defend, right? A client, being a newbie, say it that way, because that prosecution is going to kill you in court. Although, to me, everybody's connected. And the more you deal with the system, the more you'll see. Just
I believe
my
that.
opinion. Go ahead.
I believe that.
Absolutely. Just if you ever have time, free time, just go pick a case, go from beginning to end, and see what I'm saying. Pick 2 cases per year and see what I'm saying. It's constant that we see this, and this is why I have one of them here with me. I make sure I educate myself. This one in particular is Georgia's Constitution and Government.
Yes.
And I know that Leonard as well does that.
He does. He's actually brilliant. He's got a brilliant legal mind since having to really advocate for himself.
And I'll tell you guys, I don't speak right with too many clients through the different ways that you have JPay so forth, so on, that they can reach us and contact us, the family, whatever the case may be, that have educated themselves so much. I saw so many diplomas. I was like, wow, that looks like me. Like if I put all mine back there on that wall, you would be like, oh, nerdy nerd, you know? But I've always liked doing new things and learning and pushing myself. And he sounds like that as well as you do, because this was all new to you. Okay. So I'm trying to take you step by step, and I know it's like kind of a lot. I know. Then you turn around, you get found guilty, correct? In the mix of all this, was there any laws that were allegedly broken? Anything that is relevant, allegedly, of course, when it comes to anything from the investigation to the indictment onto it's a life sentence, is that correct? Life without the possibility of parole,
Life
or
with. So, although he's in a state that's not really paroling people, and it's a well-known fact, he does have life with the possibility of parole in 2026. The likelihood of that is another story because he's in Alabama, but it's life with the possibility.
Okay. So now, and I will speak with you off air. I actually have a book that will tell you guys steps to
Okay.
do. Somebody who in Georgia, they barely ever let you out within 2 years. They paroled within 2 years. And it takes a lot of help from your family out on the
Okay.
street. Okay?
Got it. Perfect.
Remind me of that.
Yes, I will.
We then turn around. He's found guilty. I could just imagine. I can't even imagine because I don't know that I can deal with that. Anybody who knows the prison system in Alabama, let's just say, and I sent it to Mrs. Coleman. I believe it was Mrs. Coleman or one of the other family members in the Coleman that I speak with, that I showed them that the Department of Justice is currently investigating the system over there. So there's been a lot of allegations, things that have taken place. I do know that Mr. Coleman has gone through some very tough situations that I wish I was allowed to step in as a human justice organization, because that's what I do. That's what we do. But I understand where he's coming from. It's a tough situation, especially when you're trying to get out. Okay. What's next? He's in there. I guess he starts fighting. How, still, you haven't met him. He's fighting on his own. What has he done on his own, him and family?
He exhausted his appeals. So actually the only reason we're able to file this current information is because it's new discovery evidence. It's a Rule 32 filing. So he did appeal twice. And one time his attorney just asked for the case to be dismissed, which is disturbing and really speaks to, it circles back to what you were saying earlier. I do believe that there are things that happen behind closed doors between DAs and attorneys that we don't know about. I really believe that DAs will sell their soul to the devil, perhaps, in a manner of speaking, to maintain that conviction rate, because Leonard hired another private attorney who then just said for the case to be dismissed. And then there was a time, and I think it's because Leonard was in solitary at that time. So he really didn't have much input into his case, and it was really in the hands of his attorney. So there were 2 appeals that he filed that were just denied and exhausted. So.
And this was, so So based on new evidence, that's what you guys were able to file this
In April.
in April. Okay. So in between, he then hires another attorney, which you just mentioned. Is that correct? Because
Yes.
it has to be a different attorney. Is that correct? If I remember correctly, it can't be the same attorney that you actually were charged with or whatever, that you got the murder sentence. Is that correct?
On that, you might know a little bit more than me. I'm not very educated as to whether it could be the same attorney, but Leonard was burned by his appeals attorneys. And so our progression of our business relationship moved in different stages. So the first thing that we did was make sure that the licensed investigator that his son found took the statements from these gentlemen. And then the next thing we did was to make sure to interview attorneys. And Leonard and I had many discussions about this was actually his idea, and I completely was on board with it. We should not hire an attorney from Mobile because we didn't want anybody who could be easily manipulated by the DA's office and any kind of like backdoor deals cut. So Leonard said, we're going to hire somebody who is just a non-factor in Mobile, and we did. So we hired an attorney from Birmingham under a Revel law firm. It's not Victor Revel, but somebody that works on his team. And so that person wrote the Rule 32 for us and also wrote an amazing response to the DA trying to throw this case out again. So yes, we do have another private attorney that was hired to help with this filing.
Okay. So the attorney burns him. He then locates, you still haven't met him. That's correct, right?
Yeah, because I came in the timeline of this new discovery evidence getting written up and finding the attorney for this Rule 32. So yes, we go back 15 months now, Leonard and I. So
Okay. So then, they find new evidence. The new evidence, as you mentioned before, is that two guys that are best friends or were best friends of the alleged murderer come out of the woodwork. What made them confess? Are they incarcerated? Are they out on the street? Was it their own conscience? Were any of them there? From what you know, and again, this is all alleged, what is your understanding?
So I've read the statements because that was one of the things I wanted to see when deciding to move forward with Leonard or not in a personal relationship. And I have them. I save all of his documents, because of everything we have going on. So these men, I like to say it was divine intervention. I like to say, the truth is always going to find a way to come out, even if someone or people try to stifle it. And so this is a prime example of my belief. My personal belief is the universe knows, God knows. So Leonard's uncle was in a barber shop in the fall of 2020, and these men happened to be there and heard Leonard's uncle speaking about Leonard's case. And they were unaware that he was still incarcerated because they knew he didn't do it. And they're also not friends that run in the same circle. So when they realized that he was actually still incarcerated for something he didn't do, they spoke up and said, we have information about this. We just never stepped forward because, the perpetrator said we can't say anything, or, our lives would be in danger. But so they just felt it was the right thing to do. They had grown and evolved as human beings, as people do over time. And they said, we have children too. Leonard should be with his children. He shouldn't be away from his family for something he didn't do. They said, we're willing to testify in court if we need to. And that's how the whole thing evolved.
Wow. What are the chances? And I like to ask questions like this because what are the chances? You see what I'm saying? Sometimes we need to really dig, get answers, right? And when I met Mrs. Coleman in person, as we've spoken a few times, I told her that even when I read a case that a client gives me, I go in there unbiased as a third party, and the first thing I do is pray. for direction or truth in case there's something that's being missed. I get it. And don't get me wrong, we take cases, and I've told Mrs. Coleman this, that the person is guilty, and they'll tell me, look, and I'm guilty. But for a wallet, I don't need a life sentence. For robbing a bank, I don't need, all I did was show a gun, I don't need a 300-year sentence, and it's those type of sentences that we help these clients with. You then turn around and, okay, so everything's being filed. Let's go back to the child and what is, I guess, said per documentation that you read. I read some of it. I read, I can speak for what I read. I did read a speech pathologist. I think it was while she was in court, or it was a statement. It was one or the other. I don't like to say unless I'm sure, but I know it was that. I did read that thoroughly. In fact, I will tell you guys, it was 1:00 in the morning, I believe, and I was laying in bed, and I had to put on my glasses because I can't see if I have my glasses on, and just read this. My jaw just dropped to the ground. But I'll let you tell it.
As far as the child and his echolalia, yeah. So I have an article posted to my Instagram page at Justice for Leonard Coleman that a speech pathologist said it's highly likely that the little one's statements are not reliable to convict Leonard. And also, I mean, in addition, it's a violation of our Sixth Amendment rights to be convicted on out-of-court statements anyway, because our Sixth Amendment gives us the right to face our accuser in court. So that's another thing. But basically, Leonard was convicted on the testimony of testimony. So basically what the detectives say that the child said at the scene. Also, I would say that, she said things that he didn't even really know his own name, right? So like when he was questioned about his name by authorities, he said his name was Jeremiah. And I can say that because his name is not Jeremiah. And he called his grandmother by Shane, but his grandmother's name is not Shane. And so, the speech pathologist basically testified, she was trained at the University of Alabama, that it sounded like he was just repeating the end of what he heard from detectives, just like you mentioned. And so Leonard and the victim also had him evaluated, and he scored pretty low for average speech and developmental disability. And so, I have even a paper from his school, his preschool, saying that, it's hard to understand him, but he's getting a little better. So all of these issues were documented and well known even before this went to trial.
When was his diagnosis with AU, autism? Or was it
If I
Asperger's?
remember correctly, I think it was the February before everything happened. So February of 2010.
And he was diagnosed with Asperger's or autism?
Echolalia.
But do you know if he's got a diagnosis of autism, or you don't know?
No, the speech pathologist testified at trial that he had red flags for autism, but to my awareness, he didn't have an official diagnosis of autism. Although we know echolalia is on that spectrum, the only official diagnosis I know of is the echolalia.
Okay. So I guess he had a speech delay as well. So I guess that's pretty much what the speech pathologist is saying. Okay. The child, according to, allegedly, right, to the speech pathologist, she testifies, look, pretty much what I said, and says, you can twist, and I will say this, you can twist these kids' words really easy. You can make them believe, not even make them believe. No, I'm not going to say that because they're super smart. They know. because my son has gone back as far as 1 year and been able to tell me things out of the blue that I'm like, who remembers that? In fact, back when he was born, I had Bright House cable. I don't know who remembers that. Just yesterday, I was on the phone with my best friend, and he says, 2004, Bright House cable, and gave my address in Florida. And I was like, what? how do you, and I was like, Bright House, because it didn't click in, but these kids are really smart, really too smart for themselves. Okay. Okay. So what was the reason for not using the child's testimony or the child come back to court according to court documentation?
I should also mention, I forgot to mention this, that the speech pathologist testified that he really was only able to say a couple words at a time. So the fact that he was even able to say a whole sentence that something had happened to mommy shows that someone, highly likely was feeding him the information to say in the background, because children with echolalia are able to repeat full sentences. They just can't form them, according to the speech pathologist. But okay, so I think my theory, again, because I always say I'm not here to slander people, libel, or anything. I always speak on things that were said to me by my husband, that I read in the news, that I read in trial transcripts, that I researched, etc. My theory is that the district attorney, Ashley Rich, probably knew that the child's statements were very sketchy and unreliable based on his age and disability. So she filed a motion to have him declared an unavailable witness, and that motion was granted. So therefore, he did not have to appear at trial because, according to Ashley Rich, District Attorney Ashley Rich, the testimony that was solicited from him at the grand jury showed that he did not know the difference between right and wrong due to his young, tender years.
Are there any other allegations of wrongdoing with the DA?
So, according to the research I've done, the Mobile Lagniappe, which is a publication out of Mobile, published an article about her in 2017, citing a Harvard report which cites that county as a death penalty outlier. And so it said between 2010 to 2015, Mobile County had 8 death penalty cases, and Ashley Rich presided over 7 of them. During that time frame, my husband was also prosecuted. He didn't receive the death penalty, but he falls into that time frame. He was convicted in 2012. And so he was very likely a victim of that aggressive prosecution. And this Harvard report found that a lot of these outlier cases for the death penalty anyway were often the result of racial bias and overzealous prosecutors. So my husband was prosecuted by a DA's office like this that was so notorious it was published in a Harvard report. And then on top of that, my own internet research has returned to me that my husband is 1 out of 6 men claiming to be wrongfully convicted by the Mobile County Circuit Court.
And again, these are allegations. Has anybody reported anything to the Department of Justice or to people higher in office, right? Because these are offices that are ran for. And let's just say the community trust, right? That they voted into office a truthful person, first of all, or we hope that they are. And for the people, if that makes sense, regardless what your position is, any of those leadership roles, as I call them. Okay. You then turn around and, okay, so the transcripts come along. Is there still a private investigator or not yet?
The private investigator was hired when these men stepped forward. So she took the statements on October 26th of 2020. That's when she came into the picture, was last fall.
Okay. According to the private investigator, because I'm sure it wasn't just the two statements. I'm sure she had to investigate other things, right?
She took the two statements and then a statement from someone who witnessed the perpetrator saying that he would kill Leonard and the victim. So there's three statements total, and she's made herself available for any other help that we need because she believes that Leonard is wrongfully convicted and she wants to help. She told him up front, if I believe you did this, there's no way I'm taking your case. So she's also invested in helping, but so far there's three statements.
And what was the connection between the alleged murder and the victim?
So this goes back to an altercation that happened between the perpetrator and Leonard. So the perpetrator and Leonard were actually, I don't know if I would use the word friends, but they were associates. They used to hang out in the same house with the same people. So they were like in the same circle. And so the perpetrator was actually about to go to prison on unrelated charges when he made this confession. So, he may have had a troubled background as well. And he blamed Leonard for saying that, oh, you caused people to steal my drug inventory. And he tried to pull a gun on Leonard at a gas station that they both found themselves at just at the same time, that they were at the same gas station. And he pulled a gun on Leonard and actually started clicking it, but the safety was on. And so Leonard, of course, did everything he could to fight him off because, he was afraid for his life. And in that process, of defending himself, the perpetrator got hurt, of course. And so this person, a former partner of Leonard, was there and saw the perpetrator threaten, I'm going to kill you and I'm going to kill the victim. And so since she witnessed this, she was willing to make a statement with the licensed investigator as well.
Okay. Wow. That's a lot. So then people are coming forward. Where's the alleged murderer at now?
That I am aware, he, according to his best friends, which I may have actually shared this folder with you where you can see their testimonies that we filed and I can send them to you offline, but that I'm aware, he was very guilty over taking Leonard away from his children and family, and he made the confession before ending his life in 2015.
Oh, my condolences to the family as well.
To everyone involved. This whole story is just heartbreaking for everyone involved, including the victim's family. So yeah, it's very painful.
Absolutely. Okay. Now, meet Leonard. It's a Christian dating site. You guys get to know each other. Read everything you need to read. You come to the conclusion that I think I want to continue with this. You continue. What next?
Now, at this present time. So the petition is doing really well, as you said, on change.org/free Leonard Coleman. We're approaching 16,500 signatures. Over the summer, I took a lot of those signatures and comments and sent them to 10 different federal, state, and local government officials. Also, the Justice for Leonard Coleman page is going strong. Leonard has been able to network with one of the Real Housewives, and so he's always on his grind. I'm always looking for contacts that can help as well to spread the message. I'm trying to work with a contact right now who does documentaries to see if our next step can be a documentary about his story. So that's where I'm at right now. I filmed a podcast yesterday with Change the Narrative, so I'm just trying to continue doing these podcasts as well. The Mobile County District Attorney's Office just filed another motion like a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, trying to again just throw out my husband's new discovery evidence as hearsay and saying that it's inadmissible. So they're still trying to have this thrown out. We're hoping that the judge is set to do an evidentiary hearing soon. The JA for Judge J.A. York said to our attorney that the judge will set an evidentiary hearing. So that's our understanding. It just hasn't happened yet. So we're waiting for that. When that date is set, I'm hoping to plan a rally, maybe with you, if you're willing, or an innocence organization, or more than one. So that's another thing that'll be in the works. And so, that's just kind of where we're at right now.
And so, of course, I told you have my full support, and I know FAIR will be there, and you can get as many. I think the more organizations we get involved, the better. And
100%,
I'm a firm believer that together we'll make change. Right?
Me too. Our voices are louder and more amplified together. Absolutely.
There you go. Some people just like to feel the show, and that's cool. That's just not the way I roll. That's not the way I roll. And if you get to know me, you'll know. I'm like, no, how can we work together? That's what I want. And I think that's what makes these laws change. You said you attempted to reach out to the family. Do you regret that?
No, Leonard knows I say this to him all the time, that I just shoot my shots. I don't know where they're going to land, but I try, and I come at situations and people from a good place, not from any malice. So, it was a little bit personal to me because I lost my father in 2010 when his body was recovered by the New Jersey Port Authority. So I will never really know how my father passed away. I know he was, involved in mental illness and alcohol addiction. And so that could have been involved, but I know what it's like to always question, what happened to my loved one? How did they leave this earth, And I just felt like it's their family member. It's not just my husband. It's their family member that this happened to. I felt that I just kind of flipped the situation, and I was like, if I were in their shoes, I would like someone to reach out to me and give me information about my loved one. So I offered, and I said, this is who I am. I'm married to Leonard. I really don't mean any harm. I just wanted to let you know this information's available now. I have it within my hands, and I'd be happy to send it to you if you'd like to have it for yourselves. They were very, I would say, very, very angry and not very nice when they responded. But, I can't really blame them. They don't know me and they don't know any better. So if it would have worked out, then great. Then I wouldn't have regretted it. But it was a 50-50 shot. So.
Makes sense. I know you're in good spirits. I know Leonard is as well. My understanding is that the children are as well. Is that correct?
To my understanding, I spoke to one of his daughters recently. And, I wanted to make sure she was okay based on some things, going on in her life, and check on her. And she said, no, I'm okay, because ever since you've been helping my dad, I have hope now. And Leonard told me a couple nights ago, you're famous within my family because they all listen to your podcast, and it's because of you they have hope that I'll come home now. So to my understanding, everyone is feeling this momentum and really hopeful about it.
And so you guys are currently awaiting from the judge. Is that correct?
Yeah,
it hasn't gone to the Supreme Court yet, right?
No, because it doesn't have to yet unless all of this fails. So we're waiting for an evidentiary hearing date from the Mobile County Circuit Court at that level right now.
Okay.
But I have alerted the Alabama Law Enforcement Agency and the FBI as to the details of the corruption that I believe is happening in that county. So I have filed higher reports as a citizen.
And that is your right as an American citizen. And I always tell people, exercise your right, speech. Because you know the law doesn't mean that you go around telling people, oh, I'm an attorney because No, it doesn't mean you're an attorney. It doesn't mean you can be accused of anything. All it means is you know the law. You study the law. And that is the biggest harm that each and every one of us, people of color especially, can have against the system. Because now we're
Education
feeding the
and
system.
knowledge.
Amen. Knowledge is power.
I believe
Lots
that.
of power. um, so you guys are waiting for the judge since April. What's in between? What is it that you want the audience to do? What is it that if you can get them to do anything for you and for Leonard, what would that be?
I really started the change.org petition because in my mind, whether this is true or not, I believe the more public support we have, the more attention his case is going to get. So I always ask people when I'm on my own social media platform, like if you have a media like newspaper publication, magazine publication, please consider sharing my husband's story. We never know who it's going to reach that might have more influence and power than I do to help him. Please share on your social media platforms. Please continue signing and sharing the petition and putting those comments on there because I'm going to do another round of sending these to government officials. I would ask, like, if you, like you or people that do documentaries, you know, you've used your platform. If someone is out there willing to film a documentary about this, I think it's going to serve really honestly the greater good because if we have a corrupt district attorney and all of those cases get investigated because corruption is suspected and then those cases get investigated, we never know how many more people's cases are going to get overturned other than my husband's. And so I'm just asking everyone to help shine a light on this.
And see, one thing that maybe a lot of people don't know out there, and I try to educate people as much as possible. Once a case, let's say it does come out that the allegations are true. I'm just saying if. If that happens or something happens and somebody slips up somewhere along the line, every single case that was ever done through that office, they have to reopen and they have to be rechecked and made sure that there wasn't anything done illegal. Or that somebody's not sitting in jail on a life sentence. Things like that. On drug charges for a life sentence. Should have probably done 10, 15. Then how can the listening audience reach Mrs. Coleman, if need be, if they even like to make a donation towards the effort? What's all contact information for you?
So the petition is located at change.org/free Leonard Coleman, and our Instagram is Justice for Leonard Coleman, which I administrate. There's also contact information on my page, or anyone could just DM me for how to write to Judge J.A. York or write to the Assistant DA overseeing the case. Right now, unfortunately, Alabama only has 2 conviction integrity units, and none of them have jurisdiction over Mobile County. We need more CIUs in Alabama. We need more. Mobile County is in desperate need of a conviction integrity unit. For now, please feel free to make those phone calls, write those letters, let them know that, we support Leonard's release. Laws were broken in his incarceration. We oppose wrongful convictions. They're harmful to society, to families. So, contact information for those entities is on my page. And again, change.org/free Leonard Coleman and Instagram, Justice for Leonard Coleman.
Okay. And finally, I ask every single person I have that I bring in for an interview, what are your final thoughts?
Well, it's hard to put that. There's just so much here to unpack and put in a nutshell. I would say to those listening, before I met my husband, I really was a firm believer in this country. My family immigrated here in the 60s, and this country's been good to us. I really thought that the criminal justice system works the way that it's supposed to until I met my husband. Just be mindful that not everyone sitting in prison, it's because they're guilty. There are many, many people in the prison system who are innocent of their charges, and they're only being treated unfairly because of the color of their skin. Check out statistics. You don't have to believe me. There are statistics out there as to how the Black male is treated in our criminal injustice system. And there are even disparities in how light-skinned Black men are treated versus dark-skinned Black men. And just please be open that, everyone has a story. So.
Absolutely. She gave you guys some nuggets there. She gave you guys some nuggets. Mrs. Coleman, it was an honor to have you here today. Anytime you'd like to come back, you're more than welcome. And hopefully we can have Mr. Coleman come in very soon and give his point. And I will say, I've spoken to Mr. Coleman. She did tell the truth. Mr. Coleman is very soft-spoken. I actually thought that Mr. Coleman was a woman when he reached out to me because he's very, very soft-spoken. Very soft-spoken. So, with that being said, I am very, again, grateful, and I'm honored to help you and your family.
That's how I feel about you. So thank you.
Yes. And we need to get together. I'm going to go through the parole part because that might be a way out too. Sometimes, hey, we can deal with everything once, we do what we have to do. I will say this, please, and to the listening audience before I get off, it just came to mind. You have a family member who is going through trial. And I learned this more through Danita. I knew it, but it didn't actually click in, right? Don't ever have them take a plea bargain. That's the worst thing that you could ever do. If they say they're not guilty, stick to that to the very end. Make sure that you document as much as possible. And you bring it up in a letter or some type of way to that attorney, and there's proof. Okay? I just gave you guys about 10 nuggets there in that little bit I said there. And study the law. WCU Human Justice Organization will be going across the nation to different towns. If you're interested in us going to your state, to your town, let us know. We will be together with FAIR and anybody else who wants to unite with us and do these seminars to really teach people the law and how to protect yourself and what steps to take and what happens. Because like I tell people all the time, I've been telling them this for years. If you're driving and you get pulled over from the second that they're already behind you, all of that evidence can be held against. So be very mindful of that. And like I say, I try to give people advice just from an unbiased point of view, right? But reading is so fundamental. You will learn so much and be so prideful at what you've learned. So with that being said, we will see you guys next week. I believe that is the 22nd. Yes, the 22nd. I will be having, let's just say the movie The Matrix is coming up, and it is somebody who has impersonated the girl on The Matrix. I can't think of her name right now off the top of my head, but I am looking forward to interviewing her. Me and her were actually together in the movie Love, Song, and Power that will be airing next year in 2022, which I'm very excited about. So with that being said, it's Trinity. Trinity, right? Trinity's the name of the girl on The Matrix. I couldn't think of her name.
I remember the movie, but not the name.
Yeah, I'm almost like 100% sure it's Trinity. So you guys don't want to miss it. And I will be having an impersonator of Neo coming along very soon as well,
And
aka Keanu Reeves, who is an outstanding actor. So I'm looking forward to watching The Matrix 4. I haven't been to the movies in forever, but I do want to watch this one. I am a fan of the Matrix movies. They're very, 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 if you read into it the way that you should, you're very educational. You will learn a lot.
yeah, that's so true.
With that being said, God bless each and every one of you guys. I love each and every one of you guys so much. And Mrs. Coleman, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
And I want to call her by her name, but Mrs. Coleman, thank you so much for coming. And you know that if it was just me and you, I would hug you and call you by your name. With that being said, love you much. God bless you. We'll be in touch very soon. And thank you for coming on my platform.
Thank you. God bless you.
Bye-bye.